the Spirit Bride who waited 1,000 years. In the quiet folds of southern Jiangnan, where rivers braided through emerald terraces like threads of molten jade, there existed a village the maps seemed to forget. Its houses were built on wooden stilts, their tiled roofs blackened by centuries of rain, and lanterns swayed in the evening wind like distant eyes watching. The villagers spoke in hushed tones of a spirit bride who waited, a figure caught between the world of the living and the eternity of the dead. Her story was told as a warning, as a lesson, and sometimes as a prayer. Her name was Lianhua. She had once lived in a time when the emperor's edicts shaped the lives of ordinary people and families arranged marriages like chess moves. She had been betrothed to a scholar named Wei Chen, a young man whose mind roamed beyond the hills and rivers, whose eyes sparkled with curiosity for the world's secrets. Their betrothal was political, their hearts strangers, yet somehow, amidst the rituals and silks and ancestral expectations, a fragile affection had bloomed. It was the night before their wedding, when the storm came. Lightning tore through the sky like white-hot swords, and the river, swollen from weeks of rain, roared with an unnatural hunger. The villagers spoke of the flood as if it were alive, a creature bent on devouring the unprepared. But it was not the river alone that frightened them. Wei Chen had never returned from the city. Lianhua waited in the ceremonial hall, red dress clinging to her like a second skin, embroidered with peonies and cranes that symbolized fidelity. Her mother tried to console her, but her words dissolved against the roar of the tempest. "Perhaps he has been delayed," she said. "The river, it is dangerous, but surely..." Lianhua did not listen. She ran to the river bank, her feet sinking into mud, the wind tearing at her hair. She called his name again and again, her voice slicing through the night. "Wei Chen, Wei Chen!" A clap of thunder answered her, and the river swallowed her cries. By dawn, she was gone. Some claimed she had drowned. Some whispered that the river spirit had claimed her, but nobody was ever found. And from that night onwards, a red lantern floated along the river, each misty evening a symbol of her mourning, a presence that could not be explained. 1,000 years passed. Empires rose and fell, and the village endured, largely forgotten by the outside world. That was when June arrived, a historian from Suzhou. He had pored over ancient scrolls, unearthing tales that scholars dismissed as folklore. Yet something in the story of Lianhua stirred a curiosity in him that he could not name. He sought the truth, not the convenient explanations, but the reality hidden beneath centuries of myth. The village welcomed him cautiously. He stayed in a small inn, the wooden beams creaking under the weight of history. At night, mist curled around the stilts, and the air smelled of wet bamboo and old incense. That first evening, as he wandered near the river, June saw it. A lantern, red and faintly glowing, floating upstream as though carried by invisible hands. A whisper rose on the wind, soft as silk, yet unmistakable. "You've come." June froze. The lantern flickered closer, revealing her. Lianhua, not fully corporeal, yet not simply a vision, a presence suspended between worlds, her eyes deep as the river itself. "I waited," she said, her voice trembling like fragile paper in the storm. "For him, for the one who promised to return." June's heart pounded. I'm not him. My name is June." "Names are less important than the soul that calls," she whispered. "You feel it too, don't you? The pull of what was lost." June stayed, compelled by the mystery, and Lianhua guided him through the village. They visited crumbling temples where stone dragons leered over moss-covered steps, and in these sacred spaces, she recited poems from their carvings, telling him the history of her century-long vigil. They walked through bamboo groves, their whispers blending with the wind, discussing love, time, and the cruel indifference of fate. "You cannot rest," June said one night, his voice barely audible over the river. Why do you remain here?" "I waited for love," Lianhua said, eyes glistening. "But in waiting, I learnt that love is not merely longing. It is endurance, understanding, and ultimately, release." June felt a shiver of recognition, of unease. This was not a story to be studied. It was a lesson to be lived, and he felt its weight pressing into his bones. One night, as the wind tore through the village like a wounded animal, a figure emerged from the mist. An old man, yet with features uncannily familiar. Wei Chen, or the shadow of him, sculpted by time and desire. Lianhua, he croaked, his voice ragged. I have returned. Lianhua faltered. His eyes, though aged, reflected centuries of longing and regret. I waited, he whispered, collapsing to his knees. I sought immortality to return to you, and yet I am here, weak and human. Lianhua's tears fell, not for him, but for herself. I can forgive, she said softly, but I cannot stay. The world has moved on, and so must I. I waited for love, and learnt that love is not possession, it is released. The river surged, lanterns flickered, and the wind carried 1,000 whispered memories. June watched, powerless, as centuries of human desire and grief collided in that moment. With a touch like the rustle of bamboo leaves, Lianhua touched the river. Its waters gleamed red, and her figure dissolved, leaving only the lantern floating upstream. Wei Chen cried until he could cry no more. June, shaking to his core, recorded everything. He realized that the story was a cruel and precise moral. Some promises are not meant to be fulfilled as expected. Some waiting teaches not reunion, but understanding. June left the village, but Lianhua's presence remained in his thoughts. He lived decades carrying the lesson of waiting, of grief, and of love that transcends possession. He understood that human hearts, no matter how strong, are often fragile when faced with eternity. In the final years of his life, June returned to the river. The red lantern floated toward him, as if guided by the same invisible hand he had first seen a lifetime before. And there she was, Lianhua, young and radiant, standing on the riverbank, as if the millennium had been a mere dream. I have waited, she said, voice clear and serene, and I have learnt. Waiting is not punishment, it is education. I teach what time cannot erase. June stepped forward, breathless. You're real? She shook her head. I am what you remember, what Wei Chen could not hold. I am the lesson, and now it is yours to carry. And then she vanished. Only the lantern remained, drifting along the river, a symbol of the impossible, the eternal, and the strange moral of human longing. Generations later, the villagers still speak of the Spirit Bride. They say she waits not for a man, nor for reunion, but for the river to carry her lesson to those who would listen. Love, longing, and morality are all entwined in her story, a story that is beautiful, haunting, and eternally strange. Moral of the story: love is not possession. Waiting may span centuries, but the deepest gift it brings is understanding, harsh, paradoxical, and strangely liberating. The heart learns what eternity cannot teach, that some wounds are meant not to heal, but to illuminate. And so, the red lantern still drifts beneath the moonlight, a whisper from 1,000 years ago, reminding us that love, loss, and time are threads woven through every tribe, every soul, every story, ever told, only here, on Folktales of Many Tribes.